Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate's on a regular calendar. Item number 1, Senate Bill 1496 by Senator Campfield on third and final consideration.
Senator Campfield, you're recognized.
For the purpose of bringing amendments, I move passage of Senate Bill 1496.
Senator Campfield moves passage of Bill 1496 on third and final consideration. That is seconded. Mr. Clerk, amendments.
Amendment number 1, Senate Judiciary Committee amendment.
Chairman Kelsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of amendment number 1 and defer to the sponsor for an explanation of the amendment which makes the bill.
Chairman Kelsey moves adoption of amendment number 1. It is a committee amendment. It's timely filed. Senator Campfield, you're recognized for explanation of committee amendment number 1.
What amendment number 1 does is two things, really. One is talks about in parks where there is a school function going on that this act shall not apply, and puts the standard for removal of signs back to the standard that has been for the last 5 years, so there is no fiscal note.
We're on amendment number 1. Discussion. We'll do a voice vote. Those in favor of adoption of amendment number 1 will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. We adopt. Mr. Clerk.
Amendment number 2, filed timely by Senator Kyle.
Senator Kyle of Shelby, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, as we all are aware, for those who are watching on the internet today, this bill would allow and would prohibit communities from allowing guns in their parks, except apparently for an exception for school functions, which the last amendment just managed. That would make for an interesting lawsuit. What my amendment simply does, ladies and gentlemen, is that what the bill says is that a community does not have to remove the signs saying that no guns are allowed in a park. I think what we're doing is we're setting up our municipalities and our local governments to a liability situation when a citizen enters a park with the understanding that by a city sign that says there will be no guns in this park and then is injured by a gun in the park. I believe they're going to be looking at their city or county government for that. Now, this is not really about whether people should bring guns, where they take them, how they take them. This really talks about whether or not whether we are communicating with our citizens accurately and forthrightly about what is their expectation when they enter the public property. And consequently, I would ask, all this amendment simply says is that they take the signs down. And therefore, people will know that will not be enticed or be able to allege that they were enticed to visit Park A over Park B because there were signs saying there would not be guns. It's an issue of liability. It's not an issue of whether or not it does not go to the issue of substance. I think everybody knows where I am on the issue of substance, but again, we're creating an opportunity for issues in the future, and I would hope you'd adopt the amendment. I don't think it changes the substance of the bill whatsoever. It just communicates to the cities that they need to take down those signs.
Senator Kelsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just would point out to the body that under the amendment that was just adopted, the effective date of this act is not until July 1, 2014, so that seems to provide plenty of time.
Senator Crow.
Yes, if the sponsor would yield.
He yields.
Just would ask, without Senator Kyle's amendment, does the bill suggest or require or create a situation wherein the cities can take those signs down?
Senator Campfield.
There's nothing mandating that they have to take them down. The current law is and has been for the last 5 years without any complaint from Senator Kyle that they can take those signs down as the signs wear out or are damaged.
Further discussion? Senator Henry.
Thanks. I've thought about this bill like all of you have. I've got a question for the gentleman if he'll yield.
Yields.
Suppose there's a part of town where it's a lot of nightclubs and saloons and such around there, and they've had trouble in that part of town with disorder for a period of time, the police have. Under this bill, in order for the police to get pistols out of the hands of the people down there, they'd have to come to the state. Is that right? They have to come to the state.
Senator Watson to respond.
Point of order. Is this relative to the amendment?
Senator Henry, we're on amendment number 2 that does deal with just the signage on there. Either we adopt or don't adopt this amendment, and then we'll be back on the bill, and I'll come right back to you. So, Senator Campfield, you're recognized.
I guess I'm not. I guess the proper motion now is to table the motion of Senator Kyle's amendment.
Senator Campfield moves to table amendment number 2. That's seconded. Senator Kyle, you're recognized to close on amendment number 2.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'd urge you not to table the amendment, and I'd urge you to support the amendment. This has nothing to do with whether or not you support the Second Amendment. This has nothing to do with if you believe people ought to have guns in parks. It doesn't have anything to do with that policy issue whatsoever. What it does have to do with is if a citizen goes into public property and their government says there is not going to be guns allowed on that property, that they can believe that that sign is true. It is the equivalent of saying we're going to have traffic signs that say no left turn, but you're supposed to know that you can make a left turn because everybody knows that. Where I thought they were not supposed to only go 35 miles an hour because the sign said they were only going to go 35 miles an hour. All this says is take down your signs. Not everyone watches us today, which means we had shorter sessions, more people understood that. And not everyone is aware of what the law is, and we are a transient community of 6 million people, of people coming and going and living and coming and going. And to say that everybody knows that you're supposed to be able to, that sign doesn't mean that you're not going to take the guns out of the park. No, they don't. Because the government, the local government did that. I don't know why a city would allow themselves to have those signs up to begin with. And I don't know why we are prohibiting them from changing that. So I hope you won't table the amendment. I hope you vote for the amendment. And I hope that the cities who are by this bill, if this bill should pass, if they will have to allow guns in their parks, that's fine. But those cities can do the right thing and take the signs down saying there's not going to be any.
We're on a tabling motion. Senator Kyle has moved the adoption of amendment number 2. Senator Campfield has moved that to the table. So you'll be voting on the tabling motion. So those who favor tabling amendment number 2 will vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed will vote no. Has every member voted? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Ayes 20, nays 10.
Tabling motion prevails. We're back on the bill. Further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Speaker, there are no further amendments.
Henry, I'll come back to you. You can repeat your question in case that'd be the easiest way, I suppose. Senator Henry?
I appreciate you, Mr. Speaker. I've got new hearing aids ordered. They ought to be here in 10 days. I'll do better, and I apologize.
Is that a motion to adjourn for 10 days? Senator Henry, you're recognized.
All right.
Sure, that's appropriate, I suppose.
Back to business.
Senator Henry, you're recognized.
Back to business, Mr. Speaker. If the sponsor would advise me, suppose you've got a part of town that's have a lot of saloons and liquor bars, drink places. And there's been trouble down there. People been shot, beaten up, and the police want to try to calm the activity down in that part of town. And one way to do it would be to say you couldn't carry a pistol down there. Now, does that city have to go to the state under your bill? Does the city have to go to the state to get that prohibition as opposed to doing it locally?
Thank you. The state constitution talks about the wearing of arms is to be regulated by the state, not the locals. Also, criminals do not obey gun laws to start with. So to say they're going to pass a legislation or we're going to pass a law to stop a criminal from carrying a gun, well, it's sort of redundant. Also, parks that I know of, I'm not sure if you're talking about parks or just in general, parks are usually closed at night when most people who are drinking or whatever go on. And this legislation only talks about handgun carry permit holders. It does not talk about anybody who may have a rifle or anybody who may have a pistol. It only deals with those people who are handgun carry permit holders. So handgun carry permit holders would be covered with the exemption. Anyone who is not a handgun carry permit holder would not be covered.
Senator Green.
Mr. Speaker, if the sponsor would yield just a second, I want to add to the answer to Senator Henry that if you look at the statistics from 1950 onward, any multiple death, violent action, or assault situation in the United States has occurred in a gun-free zone, with the exception of one. And I think what this bill does is allows Tennesseans to protect themselves. So, despite there being a situation where violence is greater, that's probably where people ought to be able to carry a gun. And certainly the statistics point that out. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Campfield.
I've also been informed by legal that local municipalities are not allowed to do that now. So if they want to do something, they do not have that power currently before this bill.
We're on the bill. Senator Cardenhire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make a point that not a single mayor in my district has called me about this bill to object to it or give their approval of it. So therefore, I'll be supporting that.
Senator Fanning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to explain my vote. I supported this bill in 2009, the original version of the bill. And the problem I have with the bill we have now is that the bill we passed in 2009 was essentially a compromise between the gun owner advocates and the cities, even if the cities didn't really feel that way. But the opt-in or opt-out clause that we adopted then was generally seen as a compromise. And now here we are 5 years later taking that away. And I just generally think, Mr. Speaker, I know we come up here and we revisit issues every year, but these types of bills, if we keep coming back to them, we tend to send the signal that the legislature can't make up its mind on these types of things. And that's why I'll be voting no.
We're on Senate Bill 1496. Further discussion? If there's no objection to the question, I will put the question and allow Senator Campfield to close. Objection to the question? Seeing none, the question has been put. Senator Campfield, you may close on Senate Bill 1496.
Thank you. What this really goes back to is the state constitution. It says the state shall regulate the wearing of arms. It doesn't give us the authority to delegate to some other municipality, to a local. Constitutional freedoms should be upheld at every level, not just the highest level, not the secondary levels, the state levels, or the local levels. I would hate to think that, say, a local municipality said, we're going to ban the First Amendment in our municipality because it's a local decision. I would hope everybody would say, no way, that's crazy. You can't do that. This is a constitutional freedom. We're allowing a constitutional freedom to continue, and it should be upheld at every level. Just because it's a local decision does not necessarily make it an automatic right decision. Also, the law we passed 5 years ago creates a patchwork of laws that someone could be legal in one city, illegal in another. Legal in one park in a city, illegal in another. Illegal one step on a greenway, and legal in the other. There is no clear delineation of where the parks begin, where the parks end. So for someone to say, well, it's illegal in the county greenway, but that county greenway joins a city park, there may not be any signage. So to say we're going to have we have a clear law that somebody can understand going from city to city across our state, it's ridiculous. We don't have something that someone can understand within their own city. I know in Knox County that's an issue. In Knox County we have greenways that go from counties to cities. And it doesn't allow people, there's no signage saying, well, you're now leaving a county park and now you're going into a city park, and therefore you no longer have your Second Amendment rights. So I think it's impossible for someone to legally understand, plus it's unconstitutional. Also, a lot of people are saying, well, we have to have local control, and it's incredible that someone is saying that we are giving up that control, and that it's terrible that we do not have local control over a park that's in our area. Well, I'll tell you what, President Obama passed allowing guns in parks. Where was the outcry when he did not give local control? I didn't hear any. It was a decision our President Obama made. And yet no one seemed to have problems with that one. And therefore, I've moved passage on third and final consideration.
Question has been put, so we're on the board. Those in favor of passing Senate Bill 1496 on third and final consideration, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Every member voted. Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Ayes 26, 7 nays.
Senate Bill 1496, having received a constitutional majority, hereby declare it passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider goes to table. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 2, Senate Bill 1660.